balance is always there, whether we like it or not. Within light is darkness, and within darkness is light. So that means that in your darkest moments, when everything seems impossible, there's hope. I used to always think, well, what if I could be happy all the time? And it turns out happiness is not exactly something we can be all the time, but what we can do is be at peace. So being completely in balance, feeling where we are, and not letting ourselves go from one side to the other. And then from that place of balance, we can experience this life in a very beautiful way.
Do you consider yourself a high achiever? Smart, driven, highly successful? I am so excited to have you. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm the host of the Stress Podcast. I will help you develop your stress resilience the same way you've developed your workplace superpowers. Learn peak performance tools to thrive at work and in your personal life. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Stress Podcast. I am really excited to have a podcast guest on the show today, which is something that we haven't done in a couple of weeks. You know, we've had a lot of one-on-one conversations lately, all about nervous system regulation and stress management. So I'm super, super excited to welcome our next podcast guest to the show. And today it is Maria Kellis. Hey Maria, how are you today?
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here, inviting me. I am excited to be here, and I am really looking forward to the show. I hope that I am setting the intention that whoever listens to today's shows get a lot of value, and really that this is a place of peace, love, and understanding for them so they can have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I can so feel that already. And I think I should say good morning because it is very early for you, right?
Yes, it is.
Tell us where you're located, what time it is, and what you've been up to, if you have done anything before jumping on the podcast today.
Sure. So I usually have a morning routine. So I got up and I did my morning routine. So for me, it's 7 a.m. here. So I got up at 6. And just to qualify, I had meetings until maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. So
Oh, wow.
I can just tell you when I got up, I was like, oh, I could use another 10 hours of sleep at least.
Yeah. Is that a regular work day for you, or was that kind of a special setup?
So last couple of weeks ago, we had a crisis in my team. So I have a team of 15 people that are working for me. So we had a little bit of a crisis. My manager quit and she left. Disaster behind her.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, I literally yesterday decided, I said, I am done with complicated. I am done with difficult. I have done this so many times. I would like to have ease and grace. And so I feel that this is truly important that I redefine what I consider normal. And I feel that sometimes I forget that we choose our life, we control what is happening by choices, by intentions. So I said, okay, I'm going to set some powerful intentions now because I don't see why I have to run in a hamster wheel.
Yeah. And it's a powerful reminder because I know, as having had that experience this year too, that even as coaches and consultants, I feel like we do still need these experiences from time to time to get that powerful reminder of, yes, we don't want to be in a hamster wheel, and we don't, we create our own world. And it's not just because we are independent entrepreneurs that we can do that, but also if you are working in a corporate company and if you are in a corporate setting, it's the same thing. Don't use the excuse of, well, but I am dependent on my employer and I'm dependent on their decisions and I'm dependent on XYZ. Yes, and at the same time, you have the power as well to make certain choices and decisions and priorities within that environment as well. And I think that's always important to remind yourself of. So I'm glad you're saying that and sharing that with us.
I like to share with people this idea of the levels of responsibility. So I like to talk about the 4 levels of responsibility. So at the level 1, I call it the victim. where things
Mhm.
happen to me. So I'm sitting around and things are just happening and they keep happening to me. So I have no control. I'm just reacting. And I like the idea of reacting as acting again. So level one is the victim. Level two is still feeling that we're reacting, still feeling that we're out of control, still feeling that no matter what happens, it's something that happens to us. But in this instance, we're choosing to feel lucky. So I call this the
Mhm.
lucky one. So it's still thinking that and perceiving the world as things happening to us, but we perceive the world as being a good world as opposed to being a bad world.
Mhm.
Right. So from the victim perspective, everything happens and everything's gonna suck.
Mhm.
And from the lucky one, it's like everything happens and everything's exciting. So
Mhm.
um, the third level is this level of the observer. So the observer is more like the Zen philosophy, the mindfulness ideas, the where they come from, where that level is. People feel that things are just happening. They're not good, they're not bad, there's no judgment, it's just an observation. And yet they feel a little bit detached. And the last level where I like to operate in and I like to teach people to come from is the level of the creator. And the
Mhm.
creator is really things are happening through me. I make
Mhm.
powerful intentions, I set um, these intentions, I make powerful choices, and I stand in my power, and my choices affect my destiny. So, pretty much, the universe is my creation, and that means good
Mhm.
and bad are my choices. And
Mhm.
it's sort of challenging because we like to take credit for the things that went well, and we like to blame someone else for the things that didn't go so well. So, that's the point where we say, okay, no matter what happened. So, for example, my manager quit and left a disaster behind. How did I contribute to this? And not
Mhm.
so much, and this is a very important distinction. It is not so fault is not the same as being responsible. So
Mhm.
it is not my fault. Those are her choices. Those are her journey. This is her being. Yet I have a contributing factor to this. I am the owner of my company. I hired her. Why did I hire her? Why did I trust her? Why did
Mhm.
I do those things um, in the way I did them? Right. And then really going back and understanding every step of the way how I was able to create that situation. How did I
Mhm.
set myself up for this? Because if I feel that she came and she made a mess and oh my God, everything's horrible, well, yeah, she did. And it's my responsibility. And and so that gives me my power back.
Mhm.
So nobody can hurt us. Nobody can do anything to us unless we let them. So why did I let her? What led me to those choices that I made? And
Mhm.
so remember the four levels, right? So things happen to me, I'm the victim. Things happen for me, I'm the lucky one. Things happen, so I'm the observer, and things
Mhm.
happen through me, I'm the creator. So in the level of the creator, we like to say 100% responsibility for everything, good, bad, and ugly. And
Mhm.
I always like to remind people there's no mistakes. Don't blame yourself. If you find yourself in this negative self talk, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Oh my God, I'm like such a loser. How could I let this happen? Then we're just hurting ourselves. Okay,
Mhm.
it happened. And then how do we go to the point of creating a powerful new arrangement next?
Mhm. Wow, I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing those four levels of responsibility with us. I think that's so powerful and so, yeah, I love that. It's so wise. And I love kind of the victim mindset and that growth mindset and also the levels in between. It's not just this one or the other, but like the nuances I've never heard of before. So thank you for sharing that. So we have already established that it's 7 o'clock in the morning for you, and I don't think we've heard yet
I am in
where you're
Thailand,
located.
so
Aha.
I like to travel. So years ago, I
Mhm.
decided that, well, it didn't sort of like, I decided I want to travel the world and I started traveling and I went to Bali And I thought I was going to stay there for 2 weeks and end up staying there for a year and a half. And I started to realize that the world is a much bigger place than we thought it would be. So then
Mhm.
I moved to Thailand to do a PhD. So uh, I'm still here at the university, and
Mhm.
the in parallel with my company, in parallel with everything I did, I decided to get a PhD because a lot of people attach importance to the doctor title. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. It turns out Thailand is wonderful, and I'm actually thinking, I think I'd like to remain here even past past the time when I am a student. So I'm actually thinking, what am I going to do next? So this is pretty exciting in general.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yet I am at this level where life is fun. So I used to travel so much. These days I'm more quiet. I travel less. I used to say that I want to travel to at least 10 countries per year. And then I got to the point where I went through, I don't know, 7 or 8. I don't remember how many. So, because I was in Thailand, I went to the United States, I went to um, uh, Jamaica, I went to Belgium, and I went to Greece and Cyprus. So 6 countries within
Mhm.
10 days. So I was like, I think 10 is like little, but then I also realized there's a real toll that came from traveling so much.
Mhm.
It's almost
Mhm.
like I will be in one place and I'll jump to another place. And I ask myself, what do I enjoy the most? And what do I get out of traveling? What do I enjoy? And so I kept the good parts and kind of like, I don't enjoy so much the airports and sleeping things and sleeping on the floor sometimes. And I'm like, not exactly my ideal, because even in those lounges where they have those, the um those comfortable chairs that you can sleep in, not so comfortable. And
Mhm.
I mean, there was a time when I literally was at the gate and I was so tired. I like slept on the floor, and thankfully this flight attendant came and said, "Are you this flight? Because we're about to take off." And I was like, "Yes, I am. All my stuff is there."
Mhm. What are you writing your PhD on?
So actually, it is healing ceremonies in Bali. So
Uh-huh.
water purification ceremony. So I wanted to study. Well, I came to my PhD with these great ideas. I thought, well, how do we use energy for 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 developing? Um, how do we understand the world? How do we create a new model of the world? And then every time academia was like, no, 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 you have to limit this, this, this. And by the
Mhm.
time I was done with my PhD, like I already passed my qualifier. So it's pretty sad at this point. But what they will accept was what I consider a little bit of a boring subject. I mean, it's an interesting subject, don't get me wrong, but to me it's so limited because my real passion is understanding humans, understanding human potential. How do we explore and expand? How do we use energy in the purest form um, to really accelerate the process, to go beyond what is said and what we think is necessary?
Mhm.
And that part can only happen when we understand that this world is not only the seen, but it's also the unseen. And that's what fascinated me from the Balinese culture, is that they have what we call the sekala and the niskala. So the sekala is the seen, the niskala is the unseen. So
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
always this dance between what they call over there in their cultural forecast the barong and the ragda. So barong being the good, if you want to think it, or the positive, or the light, and ragda being the wage, the negative. But they're always dancing. And this is also the same idea in the yin yang. So um, there's light and darkness, and they're always playing together. They're always within. And in fact, this is, I feel, one of those immutable laws of the world, which is balance. And balance is always there, whether we like it or not.
Mhm.
And within light is darkness, and within darkness is light. So that means
Mhm.
that in your darkest moments, when everything seems impossible, there's hope. And in your lightest moments, there's always something to look for, because in those moments, you need to be aware that you're still human. You're still part of the balance. And I used to always think, well, what if I could be happy all the time? And it turns out happiness is not exactly something we can be all the time, but what we can do is be at peace. So being completely in balance, feeling where we are, and not letting ourselves go from one side to the other and like, oh, the waves are too much. We're in balance, everything's okay. And then from that place of balance, we can experience this life in a very beautiful way. And when I say
Mhm.
balance, I am pretty happy. I feel balanced. I feel pretty happy. I feel at peace. But it's not the happiness, ha ha ha, I'm laughing, I'm excited.
Right.
It's a deeper level of happiness where everything's okay. And no matter what happens, I deal with it in a I'm gonna say in a very zen way. I'm like, okay, my manager, great. I left a mess behind. Great. This is great. This is a beautiful learning experience. What am I learning? Let's go into the lessons instead of going into, wow, I can't believe she did that. Okay, whatever. That's her choice. That's her personality. That's where she comes from.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with me. It
Mhm.
has it has nothing like loving somebody and accepting them, and sometimes we call this forgiveness, but really fully accepting them does not mean that I'm going to hire her ever again.
Mhm.
Clearly not, right? This is a situation where, yeah, she's not the person I was looking for, and now I know better what I'm looking for.
Mhm. Totally. Yeah, you're learning from those experiences that you've had. Um, I'm curious, how has AI impacted the Southeast Asian countries so far? Do you feel like it's happening faster there? Like I'm kind of thinking with
Actually,
all of the
not as
people and yeah.
so AI has been a part of our lives for a long time.
Hmm.
And I wanted to stress this because I feel that as the world revolves around us, it's almost if we're in the center. I think of
Hmm.
us as being at the center of the hurricane.
Hmm.
Then there's things that are happening faster and faster and faster around us,
Hmm.
and one of them is technology. And so I do want to say that recently we have become aware of great advances in technology because OpenAI created ChatGPT, which is a language tool that
Hmm.
I'm going to say evens out the field in terms of what we can write. And I believe that English now is the international language of communication, obviously.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though we come from all these languages, all these countries, and there's close to 200 countries, but there's maybe thousands of languages and dialects around the world. Yet we all come together and communicate in English. And
Hmm.
ChatGPT has um, leveled out the field, both in writing and translation. And these days, I don't even use Google Translate anymore. I use ChatGPT for my translations. Um, the point is that AI has been a fundamental part of the world, except we have not necessarily in the masses been so much aware of it. So
Hmm.
when we go into our computer and we type a Word document and it has all these autocorrect features,
Hmm.
that's AI. When
Hmm.
when we go into our phone and we talk to Siri, that's AI.
Hmm.
When we go into search something on Google and suddenly the next thing we know is we go on Amazon and we have um, these products that appear magically. That's AI.
Hmm.
These days, when we talk on the phone with somebody, or if we have Alexa in the background and we talk about something, and we go to Google, to Google or to Amazon, and we have the products we happen to talk about, that's definitely AI.
Hmm.
And it's a little bit scary, but it's definitely AI. So this
Hmm.
is this has been around us. It has been around in agriculture. It has been around in development. So OpenAI is pretty much AI building AI. So we're at the new levels, the new frontiers of development, and yet those have been part of our lives for quite some time. And it's not scary. It's very efficient.
Hmm.
And I believe that the difference for us humans is that things are just going a lot faster than they used to. But it still is a matter of leadership. I truly believe in leadership and self-leadership. And if we can manage to be in a place of peace, in a place of power, then it doesn't matter how things are happening. It doesn't matter how fast or slow things are happening. It really doesn't matter because we are creating our universe. So that being said, it is interesting to observe in Asia, they have a lot of firewalls. So a lot of what tools that can be available in the Western world have not yet come in full force here. So I'm going to say in some places it's lagging, especially in China, where they have major firewalls, but they have their own set of AI tools that are being developed. And AI has been up to now custom made for companies. It has been behind closed doors, and obviously the finance sector, one of the first sectors to join AI, the AI train. And we are getting better and better. And I believe we're at the cusp of what is about to happen. I believe that this is the beginning. We're just scratching the surface. Definitely in my lifetime, and certainly in my nieces and nephews' lifetimes, our world's going to change drastically. Turing in the 1960s, Turing came up with this idea: what if machines could think for themselves? So that seemed like a very science fiction idea back then. And today, I remember when I was growing up, my father would talk about MIT. That's the school I ended up going to, but MIT, where a researcher was trying to talk to machines. And, you know, if a researcher will say something stupid, the machine will say, "You're stupid." And it was an interaction, but it was so crazy, the machine will have an opinion. And then we had the what is it, Deep Blue, which I can't remember the name of the machine, the IBM machine that beat Garry Kasparov in chess in the 90s. And that was a huge revolution because at that point, so the first match did not. Second, yeah. And this was the first time that we saw machines performing better than humans. And I have no shame in admitting that, for example, ChatGPT is performing better in English than I ever could or ever will, probably, but that's okay. I learned English when I went to college. English. I am Greek. I grew up in France. I learned German before I even learned English. So how do you expect me to be perfect in English? I'm not. I still believe I communicate in a very good level of English, and I'm very proud of the level of mastery I've achieved in language, but it's never going to be my native language. So I've never been trained in tones and in variations and all of that. I mean, that's just not what I'm good at, and that's okay. Yet, those are tools, and it's not about looking at AI as something that's scary, but really tools that we can use and accelerate our performance. But again, I come back to saying it all depends on ourselves, on who we are, our leadership and self-leadership, because AI is only making more apparent what has been there before. So if you put a loudspeaker in front of a person, you're still hearing exactly their voice. So if you want to change things, you can't depend on anything external. You have to still be in your center and internally.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that. Do you believe that we need more awareness and self-care in the age of AI? Because I agree that we need that balance, right? We need that yin and yang, and we need, as long as we are calm, when we operate from calmness and from a regulated nervous system, we can conquer the world, right? But do you think because of the advances of AI and kind of the fast-paced environment that we are in order to keep our nervous system safe, we do need to pay more attention to it, on what the effect is of kind of those fast-paced environments?
Absolutely. the speed at which things is happening is only accelerating.
Mhm.
My little phone that's sitting down here
Mhm.
is more advanced than the what we call the workstations when I was studying,
Mhm.
and I was at MIT, so we had the best computers available
Mhm.
at the time, and those computers cannot hold a candle to my little phone, right? And those were massive, massive, massive machines. So we have changed in dramatic ways where we have been and where we are today.
Mhm.
And this is crucial to understand that there's no way to stop the rate of technology.
Mhm.
The computers, especially, are changing so fast. Something that was state of the art a few years ago is now an antique.
Mhm.
And this is not going to change. It's not going to stop. It's going to only go faster. This is
Mhm.
where we're the trajectory we're in. So if we are not in center, so think about it. So let's say I'm sitting here and I'm comfortable and things are fine, right? And then suddenly I'm on a vehicle and starts accelerating and I'm not strapped in, then I'm gonna start shaking around.
Mhm.
And and then and then maybe I'll sit tight, but then the forces are gonna force me out of balance. Yet if I'm here and I'm really secure in my place and I'm really in balance, nothing can shake me.
Mhm.
And that's where balance and being in our center becomes crucial and more important
Mhm.
because at that level, at those speeds, it is very apparent wherever little mistakes are, if we want to call it that,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
little deficiencies. They
Mhm.
become amplified.
Mhm.
And I always said the moment I started teaching that it's life in a fishbowl. There's nothing I can hide. Anything that
Mhm.
is internally not going well is going to be apparent. And
Mhm.
in the beginning, I was scared to be so visible and so vulnerable. And then I said, you know what? Perfect. That's a great tool. Whatever happens, I am grateful because it's showing me an area that I wasn't willing to look at. And even my manager quitting, for example, we were talking
Mhm.
about this.
Mhm.
Um, what she showed me is that I have this tendency to save people. I come
Mhm.
from a background of abuse, and so I definitely used to be a victim, and uh, and definitely I used to be in that victim mentality. So from that victim mentality, we always talk about the victim triangle. So there's the victim, there's the aggressor, and there's also the rescuer in that triangle. And those
Mhm.
are all three roles in the same system, in the same ecosystem of the
Mhm.
victim. And as we're shifting away from the victim, then we shift away from the victim and the aggressor, and we also get to shift away from the rescuer. And that's truly, truly important to realize that we don't save people. I
Mhm.
used to, um, I used to want to help all my clients to the point where I will take responsibility for their actions, for what
Mhm.
they were going through, their experiences. And now I understand that I can only guide them at the
Mhm.
low levels of of the vibrations, if we're going to call that power, is really manipulation and control. And that's kind of the ugly forms of power. And in the higher vibration, the yin and yang of the power become inspiration and vision. And that is crucial because at those levels, the vision and inspiration of our leadership is really where we're going towards.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that analogy with with the moving vehicle, and that these little micro inefficiencies are coming up even more. And I think the first thought that I had when you said that was COVID and how people, were forced to stay at home. And it was really interesting because at the time I was delivering and facilitating a lot of workshops on, how to work from home. And we were talking about morning routines and rituals and how to start your day before starting the work day, and how to set up your workspace. And it was really interesting because I do believe that there were a lot of little things coming up for people that they weren't aware of, right? So they were just like you were saying, they were basically like starting to realize, oh, there were inefficiencies already in my day to day when I was going to work, into work. But now that I'm doing everything from home, everything is just
Yes,
exacerbated, and right, and
right.
everything is like so much more focused on I'm actually working that much. But because when I was still commuting to work, I had that space in between, I had kind of these forced breaks, and now I don't have them anymore. And
And
so
also,
yeah.
things were kind of done for us. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
we give our power away so easily when we're growing
Mm-hmm.
up. We give it to our teachers, to our parents, to our religious leaders, to our government leaders, to any leader. We give our power. Remember that in the past, in the lower forms of, in the lower vibrations, it's manipulation and control. So we have
Mm-hmm.
been controlled, we have been manipulated, we
Mm-hmm.
have been shaped into whoever we think we are, but that's not us. In
Mm-hmm.
our power, we're very different. We are clearly in that transition stage. And as we are going to those new places, as we're experiencing these new um, paradigms, I'm going to call them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it becomes important to realize that our power is within us. So it's almost in a strange way, COVID forced us into our power because
Mm-hmm.
we became responsible for everything that was happening
Mm-hmm.
around us. There was no more, oh, I'm going to blame the boss that I hate and I'm going to blame the person that my annoying neighbor. We didn't see those anymore. And so
Mm-hmm.
everything became about us.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized we're at the center of our own little universe. And if things are not working, we can't blame anyone except ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we started seeing the transition between, oh, well, whose fault is it anyway, to, okay, I'm all by myself. Who can I blame? Nobody. And yes, a lot of people chose to blame COVID and the government, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people also chose to start taking responsibility for everything they did.
Mm-hmm.
And those people don't want to go back to work now. They're like, well, I don't want to spend my life commuting
Mm-hmm.
and giving away everything. And I want to work from home. I want to work from an environment that I choose. And
Mm-hmm.
the more power to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because at that point, we start to realize that everything that is happening is really coming from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you're thinking about AI and the yin and yang of enhancing leadership, how do you approach that topic?
So let me give you a little bit of background. So this topic is a topic that came. So uh, my brother, well, so I went to MIT, but also my two brothers went to MIT. So
Okay.
we were a very smart, driven family, high achievers, and then when my younger brother became an MIT professor, so he became a professor in computer science, and he's studying the genome. So literally, he's one of those people decoding the DNA, and obviously they build and develop a lot of tools, and uh, and then I have been in this path of understanding humans, understanding human potential, understanding genius, understanding and expanding human potential, really enhancing abilities and performance. And so they invited us in Shanghai uh, from the MIT Club of Shanghai. They knew about my work and they invited me to talk. And I said, well, my brother is also here. Would you like us to give a talk together? And we're like, well, we really want you, which is kind of funny because then they didn't even know who my brother was, right? And then they found my brother, and then I was kind of like, oh wow, yeah, we also want him to talk. And uh, and then I said, well, what topic can both of us talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love one of the comments of the participants because she said um, that it was like watching Tony Stark and Doctor Strange on stage
Mm-hmm.
because my brother is so committed to technology and advances in technology, and 1 + 1 = 2. And I'm so committed to enhancing human potential, and 1 + 1 = 11 sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
so it, we really come in our strength, but very, very, very differently. And I I thought, in the age of AI, where people are starting to see that, it becomes even more important to be in our power, to be in our leadership, to be in our center. And
Mhm.
that's where the, this topic that I've started speaking about came from, is this idea that yin and yang are there. And I always like to think of life as a river. Well, the river has a river bed, something structured, where that has a direction, and the water flows within those boundaries.
Mhm.
So anything that is yang oriented, so think of it as the structure and the riverbed, like really. And the yin is the flow, is the water. And we
Mhm.
need both. If you build a perfect riverbed with no water, it's a dry river. That sounds pretty bad, right? And
Mhm.
if you have a big a lot of water and no riverbed, then you have a flood. So that's also not cool. So you
Mhm.
need that balance. And we really understand. So the tools, the things that we put in place. So even our perfect morning routines, right? They are part of the structure that
Mhm.
keeps us in check and balances.
Mhm.
Because it's very easy for us to lose that balance and to lose that direction if we don't set an intention. Where are we going?
Mhm.
And if we get there and we don't like it, why? Of course, because we didn't know where we were going. So
Mhm.
it may seem simple and simplistic, but I like to think of the structure and the processes and the systems that we put in place as the riverbed, and
Mhm.
the flow being the accelerator, the happy accidents, the variations, the emotions, the humanity in us.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's almost as if we have spent so much time as humans spending a lot of time in that structure because we didn't perform very well in it. And now,
Mhm.
as we're building machines, more and more the machines are creating this structure.
Mhm.
So we're going towards the world of the matrix, where obviously we're not there yet, and technology has not reached those levels yet, but we're not that far off.
Mhm.
So little by little, we are giving away those things that we were so involved and struggling to do, because machines can do it better for us,
Mhm.
because they're 1 + 1 = 2. That's really machines domain. And and then we can focus on the flow, on what we can do to accelerate our lives, our leadership, our potential, everything that we have. Yes, we can call it happy coincidence, accident. It doesn't matter. Um, if you if you if you need something and you go and meet the exact right person that you were always looking for, in your mind, you're like, oh, what if I could have such and such person, right? And suddenly you meet them in front of you, and that's it. You're
Mhm.
in business. And you're like, wow, that was so lucky. Well, I'm going to argue, it wasn't lucky. You're not in the stage of things happen to me or things happen for me, but you're in the stage of things happen through me.
Mhm.
So maybe you create it, maybe you attract it. Well, I've been playing in this field of things happen through me for a while. So then I said, okay, well, how do we enhance tools here? How do we create the tools that seem like they're accelerating those lucky coincidences? The way I'm going to give you an example from years and years and years ago. So I 20 years ago, I the reason I became a person who's more interested in human potential and energy and understanding all those unseen things is because even though I'm an MIT person, 20 years ago I ended up being in a wheelchair. And when I was in a wheelchair, it was complete game over for me. It's as if
Mhm.
I had everything that could go wrong to a human go wrong.
Mhm.
And it was obviously I lost my ability to control my body, but I also lost, I felt that I lost so much.
Mhm.
I could think, I can feel, I can understand. My fiance at the time left me, saying he didn't sign up for me to be in a wheelchair. Um, and all my money went to doctor bills. So I I ended up on welfare. I qualified for food stamps. It was a really rough time.
Mhm.
And in that moment was my first realization and awareness. Because even though I was not I was in control of nothing. I lost control completely. And yet I was aware of being me. I was aware that there was somebody there.
Mhm.
And I asked that classic question, who am I? Who's the
Mhm.
Maria that's left behind? Who's
Mhm.
the me that's asking the question?
Mhm.
And by asking that question, I started realizing that I could, and in the beginning, because I was still in the victim stage, I didn't quite fully understand that I healed myself. Um, Yet I did. I had what they call a medical miracle, and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool."
Mhm.
And and then I spent the next 8 years of my life, from 2004 into 2012, where things were happening to me, and yet I somehow was overcoming. So I started feeling of myself as very lucky. Remember those 4 stages I was talking
Mhm.
about? That's where they
Mhm.
came from. And then in 2012, I had what they call a near-death experience. So I literally died, and I came back, and that's when I realized that there's karma, because I
Mhm.
went back hundreds of lives, thousands of years, and I saw that progression, what we call here in the East, the Bodhisattva experience. And so when I did that, when I went through that, when I had that realization, I was kind of very much in the observer stage, where I was like, okay, so we've moved this and this happens. Okay, so this is kind of a game, this game of consciousness. And then I fully came into my power a few years after that, around 2014, 15, where I started realizing I'm creating everything. And that means that if I want to change anything about my life, I get to choose that. I
Mhm.
get to choose what I want in order for me to be able to powerfully be who I want to be.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, I'm just flowing with the wind, and sometimes okay, and sometimes not okay. And whatever horrible things are happening to me, they're not happening to me. I'm creating those. So, how can I shift into this awareness? How can I understand my leadership in a new, different level, where horrible things are not happening to me? People will borrow money from me and not return it. I had a teacher, like a mentor at the time, who took $20,000 from me as a loan, and then decided to tell everybody that I was a horrible person and keep the money because the Great Spirit told her to. And I was like, wow, that's not what I signed up for. And that's not the level of development that I'm interested in being around. This is kind of, like, we are, I don't know if you met those people where, like, okay, the Great Spirit that told me to do that, or the universe, or
Mhm.
this is that, and I'm hurting you because, well, that's your karma. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true technically, but also you're the person who's being a little bit of a jerk right now, aren't you?
Mhm.
And this is kind of like her leadership obviously was lacking, and I'm not gonna go too much into her being, yet I took it as it's my fault back then.
Mhm.
And then I
Mhm.
realized, why am I taking everyone's fault? Why am I trying to save the universe? And this has
Mhm.
been my evolution in leadership. And that's why, and in the beginning, when I started working, I tried to do things for people.
Mhm.
Um, and then this is why I shifted into leadership, because I realized that everybody is here to do this journey for themselves. And what I can do best is help those who want to be in their leadership, those who want to be in their power, have the best experience possible, because we're
Mhm.
designing this experience. Let's have fun. And in that, from that place, create the world that we want to see. We're often playing victim. We're like, oh, the environment is broken, the earth is in trouble, and blah, blah, blah. And what can I do? And yeah, okay, I recycle too, right? But is that really helping? Yet, what if we got into the root cause? What is the place where, and that's why I love business, because I believe that a lot of decisions, a lot of change can happen from business. I truly believe that what we see as the conscious business practice of today is changing the world in very deep levels.
Mhm.
And we have seen that those companies outperform other companies. So it doesn't matter. So why not choose to be a good person doing good things in a world, because it's our choice. And from
Mhm.
that level, we can decide where to go next. So
Mhm.
that's where humanity becomes more important, our humanity. Because in the age where it doesn't matter like what we do, because everything will start being taken care of by machines or tools and technologies, and this is becoming more and more apparent in the world today, then my humanity, my leadership, where I stand matters more and more.
Mhm. Yeah. And so how so now that we understand your background, right? So how does that now translate into kind of enhancing leadership within the AI world?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking that question. Let me clarify what I was saying. So, my background was the training ground for the tools I've developed. And the the reason I started by sharing my background is to say that it doesn't quite matter where you are right now.
Mhm.
You could be the person in the wheelchair on welfare, abandoned. That is okay. You can be in that victim state, totally fine. Yet, where we're going is a place that is, we are being in a stage where things are happening faster and faster. Some people are refusing to change. More and more people are going off into a farm and saying, hey,
Mhm.
I'm checking off the grid. I'm going to develop my own plants, and I'm going to have my own water, and I'm going to have my own power, and I'm just going to be off the grid. And this is also a tendency. You can refuse to move along with the path, with the world, right? Because it's
Mhm.
going too fast, and maybe it is not exactly a human pace. And
Mhm.
people are realizing that, and there's people who are committed to getting off the grid. And yet most of us are going to choose to stay within the grid, within the everything that is happening. And what I am suggesting is that it is within our power, within our responsibility, within our control, quote unquote, to decide what our life will look like.
Mhm.
And that starts with setting powerful intentions of where we are going. So when we are thinking about enhancing, we're not really enhancing the machines. I mean, unless we are the people creating the machines, yes, we are that. But when we're enhancing our lives, we're enhancing ourselves, our growth, because we are the little cog in the wheel. And the more we're in our center, the more things don't affect us. We don't need to go off into a farm in the wilderness to to be independent of this crazy rhythm that we're in. In this podcast, you talk about stress. Well, why is the stress level so high in humans? It's because we are realizing more and more that we don't have control, and we're desperately trying to hold on to control.
Mhm.
So things are happening faster and faster, and that feels that things are happening too fast almost. And
Mhm.
as things are happening to us, then we're like, no, it's too much. And then our reaction is to almost take it inwards. And stress and burnout are real things. I believe that the reason I end up in the wheelchair is because of burnout, because I was trying so hard to do more and more and more and achieve more and create more and be more. I was an overachiever amongst overachievers. And I thought that sleep didn't matter. I thought that balance didn't matter. I thought it was a joke. All of these things that I'm talking about now, for me, were jokes. I was like, dude, if you can stay up for a whole week, you're better than if you stay up for a day and then go to sleep. What's the point of sleep anyway? I kind of ignore the humanity of me. I became a machine more and more and more and more in order to produce results. Well, guess what? That doesn't work for humans. And the stress that is being created is this overwhelm, this feeling of overwhelmed of everything's happening to me and I can't react fast enough. Well, if we're reacting, yes, we are losing speed. And if we're reacting more and more, then there's no way we can react fast enough to the speed at which things are happening in the age of AI, because things are happening almost too fast. Things are happening faster and faster. And what we call stress is really fear. I always say that stress is the overachiever's polite way to talk about fear. We're scared. We're scared of what is happening. And I'm here to tell you that we don't need to be that scared. Things are happening, yes. And you don't need to react to them. You can respond from a place of power, from a place of peace, where we're not things. So, yeah, I could react to my manager quitting by being angry and upset. And yes, I did have emotions. I spent a few days having my emotions. Don't get me wrong. I am human. But the way I did it is I had my emotions, and then I started responding by creating what needed to be created in the company for the company to function. And this is the difference. If we are reacting, then maybe my company will go out of business. And of course, I'm going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen, because then I'm responding. So something bad happened, it's going to get worse. And I said, hey, okay, I'll have my emotions. I'll feel the betrayal. I'll feel the whatever happened. I call this the mean girls club. Like, okay, so my manager's like, well, it's not only me, but these people are saying this about you. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And thank you for sharing. And I'm like, what's my responsibility in that? Okay, I'll take the responsibility. I'll know how to plan better for the future. And then let's create systems and processes that this doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, part of the reason this happened is because a lot of the control was given to the manager, who kind of took advantage of it. But how common is that? We give control and we give power to somebody who doesn't quite is at the level where they can handle it. And then they start responding by being upset at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't just upset with me, she was upset with most of the team, right? It was their fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I started realizing, it was a few weeks before she quit, right? And it's because I started realizing that there were issues, and I started addressing those issues and saying, hey, how can we enhance the team and your leadership in order to address those issues? And she started blaming people for their problems. And then I was like, oh, we have a real issue here.
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally hired a victim in my team. I didn't mean to, but I did. So I literally have because I'm not the only one teaching, I have a team of trainers as well. I started having my trainers work with her closely, and it was her choice. She was either going to grow into the manager that the company needed, or she was going to become more and more. And unfortunately, she chose to become more and more of the victim, to create more and more drama, until the point where she felt that she needed to leave because she didn't want to take responsibility for anything that was happening. And that's okay, right? But she didn't belong in my team anymore. And I'm not saying, I know I did the best I could. And yes, the first reaction is like, oh, I'm so stupid. How can I hire this person? But then I was like, not self-blame. Blame is not, it's a useless thing. So how did I create this? Why did I get this why did I allow this to go on so long? Were there warning signs? And I look back and I'm like, yeah, the moment there were warning signs, I started taking action. I started changing things. And I did the best I could. And this is all we can ever ask for, the best we can. So when we want to remove stress, did I do the best I could in everything? Can I be okay with myself? And when we're in our power, when we're in our center, we can be okay with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're okay with ourselves, then we can move to the next stage, which is the stage where we are understanding that everything that we do will have an effect. So when we're selecting the tools that we're going to use, I mean, we use a lot of tools in the company, right? When we select our tools, it's not because, oh, that tool is cool. And I see this happen over and over again, and definitely with software engineers, where we are, oh my God, this is the new tool, this is the new trend, let's overinvest in that. And then we find the limitation of that tool, and we're like, oh, that was clearly a mistake, and that's 2 years later, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what if you said, okay, there's a new cool tool that came out, I love it, and we're going to use it, and yet we're going to remember our focus, our vision, because the tools are there to be used. They're not there to use us. And that's clearly important. So our leadership, that's where leadership matters, because we realize that the greatest tool in the world is only as good as the user. And the greatest solution in the world is only as good as the solution, because we set the intention first of what we needed to achieve.
Yeah, totally. Maria, this was really interesting. I'm so glad that we had the chance to meet you today. What is the best way for people to follow you or to reach out to you if they're curious to learn more?
Absolutely. So we are on social media, like my team is taking care of that. And but that being said, the easiest way to reach me is through my website, mariakellis.com. So it's really my name, Maria, and Kellis with double L, KELLIS.com. And then from there, you can find a way to reach me. You can find us on social media. You can find the places where I've spoken. You can listen to recordings of what I've said. So there's a lot of resources. You can look at the classes we have available, the summits we participate in, the things that we have, and we also have a free gift, which is AI Big and Young. So very theme with what we're saying today, and how to enhance leadership. So we'll go deeper into these topics that we discuss using examples from industry. For example, Microsoft, how they or many other companies, because these are examples of what is happening today, and that will help you enhance your leadership and potential within the company today. And it can be your company, so you can be the entrepreneur, or you can be working for someone, and then you can be what I call the intrapreneur. So the entrepreneur within the company. So maybe you don't have to worry about everything, yet your leadership can affect the innovation and creativity of your team and your company.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. If you listen to the podcast today and you want to share this with someone else, please make sure to do so. Share this message with the world and share the insights that Maria shared with us today. And I hope to hear you in the next podcast episode. So thank you again, Maria, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for listening. And remember, you are amazing.